Alright, so what's going on, guys? My name's Chopper. In the Call of Duty Zombies comics, there are plenty of Easter eggs to be found within the comic itself. Not just the pages and the story we're reading, but if you look around deeply, you will find ciphers and little things and pictures and hints to different things within the storyline. And it doesn't just have to be within the pages, the confines of the book itself. It can even be outside the book, because Treyarch is very sneaky about this kind of stuff. So if you actually take all of the covers that we have of the Call of Duty Zombies comics that have been released so far, and you take all the cover art, put them together, they line up into this panoramic picture right here. And as you can see, the dimensions aren't exact and it's not like perfectly lined up, but you can see that it is trying to form one, linear panoramic picture. So needless to say, there are plenty of Easter eggs within the Call of Duty Zombies comic book series, and in fact, in the first ever one that we got, there are ciphers talking about how the Keepers are going to rise again, and some talking about Richtofen, and this is very, very interesting because we know that the Call of Duty Zombies whole series is going to be about how Richtofen actually got a hold and secured the Chronorium, and then this Easter egg that we're going to be looking at today almost sort of signifies just that, and we get a little bit more background information on what that subject matter is. So basically what we're going to be looking at today is not necessarily a cipher in the traditional sense. It's more of, do you guys remember the World at War bio Easter egg with the characters, and you take the first letter of each sentence and you put it in together, and it talks about Richtofen being an evil doctor or something along those lines. I don't remember exactly the cipher, but it was something along that Richtofen has these evil intentions, and we're going to be looking at a similar concept today within the Call of Duty Zombies comic. So there's a particular page in the comic which has a certain string of dialogue right here. As you guys can see, the characters talking to each other, and you take the first letter of each word and you put it into one, group, and then you can put it into this program on the computer, and it will give you all of the possible word combinations that these letters can make, and a couple of them are very, very interesting. Most of the combinations that it gives you are nonsense, but there's a couple that make sense in terms of the storyline and where we should actually be in this. So one of the combinations that it gives you is Green Run insured on Eddie's sin, and this one is probably the most interesting to me because this makes the most amount of sense. Green Run was insured on Eddie's sin if you think about it. So we know for a fact that Eddie is the nickname used for Richtofen 1.0, who is in the house with Samantha at this point. But what Richtofen 1.0 did back in Black Ops 1 was he blew up the Earth from the moon. He launched the rockets and created the events of Black Ops 2, which happened to be Green Run. At the same time of those events happening, when the rockets were going towards the Earth, Richtofen also switched bodies with Samantha, who is in the MPD and in control of the zombies, which giving Richtofen access to the ether, controlling the zombies as well. And what this tells us is that all of Green Run and all the events that transpired here, including the crew meeting up in the way that they did, only happened and was only made possible because of Richtofen and what he did at the moon. His sins by blowing up the Earth and switching bodies with Samantha. And I think that one is the most accurate interpretation of these words, but there's one more combination that you can get that does make sense, but when you think about it, or at least in my mind anyway, it doesn't really add up. And when you read out the other one, it said, "Our sins ended inside Green Run." Now, this might not sound, completely false to you right off the bat, but I was thinking about this a little bit more because it did sound like it could be, what Treyarch was actually trying to convey to us, but I don't think it is. Now, if you think about it, Green Run was where they all met, and this was not the end of their sins. We know that in Buried, that was the last map that we saw our transit crew in, and that is where they probably died. We don't really know exactly what their fate was, but just from the Easter egg and from what we know, we think that they died in Buried. So their sins didn't really end in Green Run. They were only really just beginning, in my opinion. Before the transit crew met up, Samuel Stuhlinger was part of an organization called The Flesh, and this was a band of survivors who ate zombie flesh in order to stay alive, and this is what kind of like this ritual that they had to do in order to be a part of the group. But for unknown reasons, Samuel Stuhlinger ended up leaving the group, maybe because of the voice of Richtofen or maybe because of something else. We don't really know at this point. But all of the transit characters and all four of that group had sins beforehand meeting up to each other in Green Run, but their sins didn't end in Green Run. So this makes me think that this interpretation of the message is wrong. But I think that Treyarch designed these two messages that way so that there's controversy between them, because they both make sense on surface and face value when you think about it, but you can kind of tear each one apart with facts and different arguments and things like that, honestly. But what I'm on the side of is the first one. I think that one is the most accurate and the one that Treyarch is trying to convey, but I do believe they put in the second one as a possibility so we could talk about this and kind of make an argument for or against each of these messages. But at the end of the day, whatever Treyarch says is the correct message, it doesn't really matter because it's not going to change our whole perspective on zombies. They almost mean the same thing, or they aren't really game changing towards each other. You have to pick one or the other. I think the first one is really just talking about how Green Run was ensured because of what Eddie did on the events of Moon and things like that, but the other one is talking about how the 4 transit characters met up and their sins ended in Green Run, which, like I said, I don't think is entirely accurate, but this one is really up to interpretation. So what I want to know from you guys is, which message do you think is the most accurate, and which one makes the most sense, or what do you think Treyarch is trying to convey to us through these messages? Like I said, they're not really entirely wrong, whichever you pick, and there's arguments for both sides, but I think it's number one. That's just my personal preference anyway, but they're both very, very interesting regardless, and the CoD Zombies comics are absolutely full of Easter eggs, so as we get new ones, I'm sure we're going to get little things like this and maybe an explanation towards this, you know, in a future release or whatever, so we'll have to see about all that. But if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to drop a like on it, guys. I really would appreciate that, and if you guys are new to the channel and want to see more stuff like this, make sure to subscribe if you guys have not already. Anyway, other than that, guys, hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you guys on the next video.